Hi, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Mateo Lewis, and welcome back to
Music Theater Theory.
So today we're going to be looking at a song that is a staple in many mezzo belters rep books, which is Safer from First Date. This role was originated on Broadway by Krista Rodriguez, who I love. And if you don't know the show, it's about a couple that meets on a first date. And throughout the night, they kind of relive their past traumas about their dating experiences as they kind of get ready to take this big step forward and enter this new relationship with each other. So this song is a song that Casey, the girl in the relationship, sings about the walls that she puts up to stop people from getting into her heart and to stop investing herself emotionally in people. I think we can all kind of relate to that. That's what this song is about, and it rings true for a lot of people right now. It rings true for me. So that's the song I wanted to analyze. It's a pretty simple song. The chord progression is very classic pop. The song starts like this. I know that I have issues. I face them, I swear. Think I overcome them, then turn, they're still there. Wish that I was different, I'd like to let go. But when I try to change, there's my past saying no. So this first verse off the top is just, plain chords from the piano, and the singer is kind of singing over top of them. Very conversational, written in a very conversational place in the voice. A flat, B flat, C in a mezzo-soprano belter's voice. That's kind of the range that those voice types usually speak in, which is why it's so effectively used here to kind of make her sound like she's just chatting to her friend. I know that I have issues, I face them, I swear. And this is classic contemporary musical theater. These solid chords from the piano, conversational first verse. That's a staple of the 21st century musical theater canon. Wish that I was different, I'd like to let go. But when I try to change, there's my past saying no. Then it goes, maybe it's all 'cause of dad, his new kids, his new... So here we're getting these open fifth chords, which are very rock. Typical triad chords, which are 3-note chords, are either 1, 3, 5, that major third makes it a major chord, or that minor third, 1 flat 3, 5, 1 minor 3, 5, that makes it a minor chord. But open chords don't have any kind of third, so it's just 1, 5, and it's this very kind of big sound that doesn't have a specific quality, it's just huge. And that's why it's used so much in rock songs. So that borrows a lot from rock music. Or why not just blame mom, who's been nuts my whole life? There's that open chord again. When you felt so alone since the moment of birth, and you've struggled to find your own true sense of worth, when it seems there is no one across this whole earth to depend upon, you carry on, just like you always do, 'cause it's safer to rely on you. Oh, it's safer to rely on you. So this chorus is where we get this chord progression that I love. It's one of the most commonly used chord progressions in the world, but every single song that uses it gets to me somehow because I just love the sound of this chord progression so much. It's 6 minor, 4, 1, 5. So if you've seen the 4 chords video by Axis of Awesome, which I'll link in the description, that's a video where they take a chord progression that is super common in pop music, and they just loop that chord progression and they sing 1,000,000,005 different pop songs on top of it. So that chord progression is 1, 3 minor, 6 minor, 4. And the 3 minor in the middle there can sometimes be swapped out for the 5. So instead of 1, 3 minor, it can be 1, 5. So we've all heard that chord progression. And if you think you've never heard that chord progression before, you're wrong. You have heard it before. And go check out that Axis of Awesome video and you'll see how many songs use that chord progression. Now that chord progression is much happier, I feel, than the one used in Safer. Even though they're all the same chords, in the same order, it just starts at a different place. So if we're using the variation of the axis of awesome 4 chords that is 1-5 instead of the 3 minor, and then 6 minor 4, that's 1-5-6 minor 4, that chord progression is the same as the safer chord progression, just the safer chord progression starts on the 6 minor and then loops around 6 minor, 4, 1, 5. And that totally changes the mood of the song. Because when you start on this major chord, you start in such a calm, happy, satisfied place. You're starting on the 1, you're starting on the tonic, which feels totally at rest, and then you go to the 5, and the 5 chord classically resolves back to the 1. Dominant, tonic. But instead of going back to the tonic, it goes to the relative minor, which is the 6 minor. So instead of going 5, 1, dominant, tonic, it goes 5, 6 minor. And that's what's called a deceptive cadence, because you think it's going to resolve in a major way, but instead it goes to a minor chord. So you have starts on the tonic, feels at rest, drops down to the dominant, then deceptive cadence to the minor 6th, and then it falls down to the 4, and then it goes from the 4 down to the 1, which is called a plagal cadence. And that's kind of the other most used cadence to resolve down to the 1. The dominant cadence feels much more triumphant, but the plagal cadence feels a little bit more like it's coming to rest, instead of that it's arriving triumphantly. So that's what makes that chord progression, the axis of awesome one, feel so, satisfying and at rest. Safer uses those same 4 chords in the same order, but because it starts on a different chord, it has a totally different feeling. It starts on the 6 minor, so it starts off in this really kind of dark place, this minor place. Then it goes down to the 4, which feels like a very dramatic drop. Then it goes from the D flat, it resolves into the major chord, and you feel like we've gone through these 2 chords that feel so dramatic and so dark. Now we're finally at this happy place, and you feel this joy that you're finally here, and then it rips that joy away from you because it goes down to the 5th chord and then resolves back to the minor. So you start off in this really kind of dark place, and then it takes you to this really happy place and then tears you away from it. And then you're back in this dark place. And so every 4 bars, you're starting off in this really dark place, you're getting a glimpse of this joy that you want, and then you're getting it ripped away. And that chord progression is used to signify that feeling in so many songs. I always reference my 2 favorite songs in the musical theater canon on this channel, which are Waving Through a Window from Dear Evan Hansen and Defying Gravity from Wicked. Those both use that same chord progression. It's time to try defying gravity. Waving Through a Window is the exact same. On the outside, always looking in, will I ever be more than I've always been? 'Cause I'm tapping on the glass. Six minor, 4, 1, 5. So that's my favorite pop chord progression. It packs such an emotional punch for me, even though it's so simple, and it's a variation on one of the most basic, overused chord progressions of all time. It still is so powerful to me. And that's the chord progression that this song uses. Oh, it's safer to rely on you. So that piano section, that interlude out of the chorus into the second verse, is really a masterclass on how to develop a pop piano motif. Because at the very beginning we have this, and that becomes, after the first chorus, which is the same thing, but there's more motion and there's more volume and there's more power to it. And so there are 2 things that make that difference. The first thing is the rhythm. In the beginning we have in the left hand this solid chord, and then this one broken chord going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the rhythm in the left hand is literally bum, 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 bum. There's a lot of stillness in that, whereas in the second one, the left hand is constantly moving this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which gives it a lot more movement and a lot more energy than the first time, and makes it a little bit less reflective and pensive, because the first time these solid chords give you a lot of space to kind of pause and think, and this one is just constantly moving, and it just makes the feeling come faster without you getting a chance to really think about it in the same way. The other big difference between the first motif and the second one is that the left hand just drops down an octave. It goes from this, with the left hand up here, to this with the left hand all the way down here. And that uses the piano as an instrument really, really effectively, because this section of the piano, those notes don't have the same deep buzzing resonance that these ones down here do. So these notes give us so much more gravitas, whereas these notes float up into the sky a little bit more. So the first one is so much more floaty, and then the second one really digs in. And so if you're writing a pop style song on the piano and you want to develop it from one verse to the next, which is a really, really great thing to do so that the audience doesn't get bored by hearing the same thing over and over, what you do is you give them the same thing in a slightly different way over and over. And you can do that really, really easily using these techniques to either lower the left hand an octave to give it that kind of grounding and that power, or raising the left hand an octave to make it float up into the sky depending on the story you're trying to tell. I should also point out, the dynamic that's written in the sheet music I have for that section, that second section, is piano still. So the volume doesn't increase, but the power of it still increases because of the change in octave and the added rhythm in the left hand. Seen a million movies all selling true love, fantasies I'm not sure that I'm worthy of. Caution to the wind, my heart's been on display. Still the end result is it's not gone my way. So when I date some new guy who's a deadbeat or jerk, at least I'm not so crushed when it all doesn't work. So there we get those open chords again. It's just E flat, B flat, that's it. Also, I love that line. I think that line encapsulates so well the dating scene in the 21st century. So when I date some new guy who's a deadbeat or jerk, at least I'm not so crushed when it all doesn't work. That line gets me. When you once unafraid wore your heart on your sleeve, and the ones that you loved chose to just turn and leave. That lyric set on that chord progression is really, really a good example of what I mean about the power of this chord progression. You once unafraid wore your heart on your sleeve. Here's the major chord, and the ones that you love. And then it takes it away. Chose to just turn and leave. Every day it gets harder to somehow believe you will survive, so you strive just to keep up your guard. 'Cause it's safer to hold every card. Oh, it's safer to hold every card. This is also an open chord. I feel out of control, and then we go into the bridge. Another thing is that this song is the classic pop form. The form of the song just basically means the order in which the sections come and which sections repeat. So they label each repeating section with a letter and then give you kind of a letter code of the order of the sections. So for example, if you had a very short song that went la la la, la la la, la la la, la la la, that would be A, B, A. Because this first chunk of melody, la la la, we would label A. That's the A section. And then it repeats, la la la, so that's another A section. And then la la la, ooh, that's different. That's going to be labeled the B section. And then back to la la la, so that would be labeled the A section. So that's a very, very basic idea of how form works. Most pop songs use A, B, A, B, C, B. So you have a verse. In this song, it's the section. That's the A section. Then you have a chorus, na-da-dum, na-da-dum, da-da-dum, na-da-dum. And every time that repeats, we can call that the B section. Then here we're going into the C section, which is something we haven't heard yet, which is why it's labeled with a new letter. And then at the end, we'll go back for the final chorus. And almost every pop song on the radio uses this format. There's a verse, a chorus, a verse, a chorus, then a bridge that's different, and then another final chorus. That's how a lot of pop songs are built, and this song uses that form. Which I think is really effective because if the target audience is an audience that listens to a lot of pop music, if it's like a late teen, early adult demographic, that audience usually listens to a lot of pop music, and so this form is really accessible to them. It also illustrates the fact that this character probably listens to a lot of 21st century pop music because she's, you know, a cool, hip with the times chick living in the 21st century. So you can use form to connect with your audience, but you can also use form to illustrate character. And actually a really good example of how this show, First Date, uses that use of form to illustrate character is that when the old waiter comes out and does his tap dance number, I'd Order Love, that song is actually in AABA format, which is a much older format that was very, very popular in like the golden age of musical theater in the 60s. So it shows that he comes from a different time. I feel out of control, I feel safe on the ground. I go building up walls, yet I wish to be found. A true contradiction to which I am bound. Two things I want to point out in this section. The first thing is every bar the dynamic changes very, very suddenly, which is a technique you don't hear a lot in pop music because it's very jarring to the ear, but it works a lot in a dramatic setting like in musical theater. It accentuates the difference between the two things that the character's comparing here. I feel out of control, I feel safe on the ground. I go building up walls, yet I wish to be found. Two very different ideas, two very different feelings, and they're compared with dynamics. So that's a really good example of the way that when you're writing for musical theater, even if you're writing in a pop style, it's really helpful to use classical music tools to kind of illustrate your point and to communicate the character's thought process. The other thing I want to point out is a pet peeve of mine is when lyricists change around the syntax of a sentence just to land the rhyme at the end. Building up walls, yet I wish to be found. A true contradiction to which I am bound. That line rubs me the wrong way because I think they probably could have come up with a better lyric for that. Nobody says a contradiction to which I am bound, especially because they do such a good job in the rest of the song of illustrating this character's very like hip 21st century vernacular. So that line just sticks out to me. All my musical theater writers out there, don't change around the syntax just to get a rhyme. It's not worth it usually. No shade to Alan Zachary and Michael Weiner. I think they're fantastic writers and I love this show. That's the one line though that I did want to kind of point out. A true contradiction to which I am bound. As I keep on spinning around and around. I love that idea musically. The melody is da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na-na. On the lyric, I keep on spinning around and around, and the melody spins around and around. We also get this weird 3-note figure in the right hand of the piano, which adds to that feeling of spinning and discombobulation. And it builds into this really sudden key change that comes out of nowhere. As I keep on spinning around and around, and I look at the people who've worked it all out, and I wonder why I'm still a bundle of doubt. And sometimes I wanna just stand up and shout, just commit and deal with it before your life flies by. Don't let your life fly by. But is it safer? Maybe it's safer if I don't try. And that's how the song ends. Throughout this whole song, they've been writing really, really well for that mezzo-belter voice type, because at the end here as well, they use a really special part of that voice that they haven't used yet, which is this high, breathy head voice. So the notes are the same notes that she was just belting before, these C sharps and Ds, and she was skrelting them at the top of her lungs, but now she's in this really kind of like airy, almost falsetto place in a super piano dynamic. But is it safer? which is really intimate and broken and beautiful. So that's a really good use of this voice type, starting off in this low place, these A's and B's down here that are very conversational in that voice, and then belting these C sharp, D, E's, and then the same C sharps and D's, but in a much softer dynamic, in a much softer register of the voice. So that's really good vocal writing. This has been Safer from First Date. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel because I'm posting new music theater theory videos every single Sunday for the next little while. Also, I've written a series of songs from the perspective of different characters dealing with the coronavirus pandemic, and I'll be releasing those videos one at a time on this channel as well. And some of the best performers in Canada have graciously agreed to sing the songs for me, so you're going to be getting performances from Stratford, Mirvish, Drayton, the Charlottetown Festival. So make sure you subscribe because you don't want to miss that. These people are fantastic, fantastic performers. Also, comment below what song I should do in my next video, because I'm running out of ideas. Thank you guys so much for watching. It means the world to me. I'm Mateo Lewis, and this has been
Music Theater Theory.